This is the 20 Minutes of Influence podcast with your host, Greg Jameson. Influencer marketing is the process of identifying, researching, engaging, and supporting the people who create high-impact conversations with your customers. On each episode, I talk with industry leaders, business rock stars, and internet celebrities who contribute their knowledge about influencing others and growing your influence.
Welcome to the 20 Minutes of Influence podcast. I'm your host, Greg Jameson, and I have a guest with me today. His name is Erik Johnson, and Erik and I have actually just met, but seem to have hit it off well here already. Erik is someone that is a coach about podcasting, and specifically, he is going to help our listeners today. You might be a consultant or a coach yourself. You may have a brick and mortar business, but he's going to talk to us about why you need to have a podcast and how he can help you get started with a podcast, if that makes sense for your business. So welcome, Erik. I'm super excited that you're here with us today. And why don't you tell our listeners more about yourself?
Greg, thanks for having me. I appreciate it. Well, I spent the past 30 years in broadcast radio and started listening to podcasts about a dozen years ago. Really fell in love with the format. But the more I listened to podcasts, the more I realized that if podcasters just knew a little bit more about the business, their shows could be so much stronger and their information could be so much helpful. So I jumped into coaching podcasters and coaching business owners how to get into podcasting, because it's such a powerful resource in order to get in front of your clients each and every week and demonstrate what you do and help your clients solve their problems, and not only help them solve their problems, but show them why your solution is the answer to their problems. And so I coach businesses and content creators and just people to launch podcasts and get out in the podcasting world.
Yeah, that's awesome. Now, I can see you've got this big professional microphone going on there, and I've got a similar type of setup here myself. How big of a microphone, or, how much equipment does somebody really need to get into doing this?
Greg, that's probably the biggest mistake most people make when they're getting into podcasting, is they think they need to go out and buy this huge sound system or a bunch of equipment, spend hundreds and thousands of dollars on it to get into podcasting. And that's absolutely not true. The microphone that I'm using right here cost me $60. It's a USB microphone. So the cable plugs right into the USB port of my computer and I'm up and running. That's really the only thing I needed to buy. The arm that holds my microphone cost me another $30. So I think all in, I'm less than $100 to be up and running with a podcast. It's so simple today. And the technology side of it is super easy as well. If you can upload like a video to Facebook or something like that, you can upload a podcast. And if you can edit a Word document, you can edit the audio in the editing software. It's really a lot easier than it looks from the outside. And it's a lot cheaper to get in and get started as well.
Yeah, one of the things I found is that it took a little while to get set up. The equipment, like you said, was kind of a no-brainer, but getting things set up so that the podcast goes out to all of the syndicated channels, whether it be Apple or Spotify or Google, whatever it is. But once it's set up, you're right. You and I have a conversation here, we record it, we upload it, and the rest is just kind of happens.
Right. It happens on its own. Now, if you're on Apple Podcasts and you're on Spotify and you're on like Stitcher and iHeartRadio, the handful of the big ones, you're covering most of the market. Studies show that 60% of podcast listeners listen on Apple Podcasts. So if you're up there, you're getting 60% of the audience already. And once you set up that link, you don't have to touch it again. It's good to go. Every time you put a new podcast up, it automatically gets sucked in and You don't even have to do anything. It does it on its own. It's so easy once it's all set up.
Yeah, I totally agree. Now, the other question, though, that I think a lot of people are going to have here is, what do I talk about?
Well, if it's your passion. So let's say you're in the let's say you're in the leather working business, like you sell leather goods, right? Obviously you got into that business because that's your passion. That's what you love. You love talking about the different types of leather, the different processes to create it or color it, or all of that good stuff. Like if I'm going out to buy some leather goods and I have no idea what I'm doing, I need your help. You're the one I come to get that sort of information. That's what you can talk about on your show. Like, how do you source the hide, and how do you treat it? How do you color it, and all of that stuff? I mean, if it's your passion, you shouldn't run out of things to talk about. If you truly love what you do, many people make the mistake of going into podcasting and, well, I need to talk about what my audience is interested in. You have it backwards. You need to talk about what you're interested in. And if you're
Yep.
passionate about it, then your audience will be passionate about it.
Yep, I think that's really true. And in fact, it almost seems like the the audience that you're going to attract is going to be based upon what it is that you're interested in. And my guess is that if people come into your shop and say it's the leather shop that you were mentioning, they come into your shop, you're going to be able to talk to customers for as long as they want to talk to you about the products and services that you provide. So why not just make it part of your podcast and
Well, you
explain
know
them?
the questions that you're getting from your ideal clients. Like, let's say you're a plumber and you always get asked, why does my kitchen sink leak? Why do I have a pooling of water around my hot water heater? Why does the toilet continue to run every now and then? You have those questions and you can answer those on your podcast. Now, let's say you're a plumber and you have a plumbing podcast and you talk about how to fix everyday problems with your plumbing, and how to know when it's time to call the plumber, if it's something you can fix, or is it time to call the plumber? Like, that'd be a great name for a podcast. Is it time to call the plumber? Like, that's the show I go to when I need to learn about plumbing issues. And then when it's time to call the plumber, who am I going to think of? The guy that hosts the plumbing podcast. Like, it's just a way to get in front of your ideal clients every week. Not only that, but you have them subscribe to the show. There's a show. This guy loves horses. He runs a farm. He has horses on his farm, and he does a horse podcast. And he just talks about horse. It's called the Horse Radio Network, and all he talks about is horses and saddles and tack and all of that stuff. And people love it because people who love horses, one, have a lot of money, and two, love talking about horses. And so they listen to him, they subscribe to him, listen to him every week. Well, when they're ready to order their tack, if it's not a saddle that they're going down to the store to buy, if it's something they're buying on a regular basis, they buy from him because he's got an online store set up, and along with his brick and mortar store. And that's how he makes his money. But he never runs out of stuff to talk about. Matter of fact, he's got multiple shows now that talk about different aspects of horses. It's great.
And that is so huge what you just said there in terms of what the whole world is going through right now, where so many businesses have shut down and are not able to service their customers. When you have an online store, like you said, and this guy's still in front of his audience because he's got this podcast out there that's going out every week, that it hasn't affected someone like that nearly as much as it has if all you've got is a brick and mortar store.
Absolutely. If people can't come into your brick and mortar store right now, but you're still connecting with them and talking with them every week, and now's a perfect time to launch a podcast for two reasons. One, you have a lot of time on your hands, and two, your ideal clients have a lot of time on their hands. And so they have time to come and find you and try new things because they're running out of stuff to watch on Netflix, and they still need your goods and services. So now's a perfect time to get up and running.
Yeah, there's more content being consumed now than I think at any time in history because of the fact that people do have the time on their hands and they want to learn new things. Specifically, it seems like with a podcast that, podcasts have, at least traditionally for me, I listen to them in the car as opposed to listening to the radio. But I also listen to them when I go on a walk, when I'm exercising, anything that uh, is kind of something where I can multitask. Basically, I'm learning something as I'm doing something else.
That's the great thing about podcasting, is that podcasts are portable, right? It's not like a television commercial or a late night infomercial where people have to actually be physically sitting in front of the television in order to consume it. You can consume it on your bike, on the treadmill, while you're out on the riding mower. You can consume it while you're on a walk, or while you're running, or while you're driving, or while you're painting, or while you're working. It goes with you everywhere you go. So it's the optimal medium, and it's a great way to get in front of your audience. It's like an infomercial or a webinar that you're getting in front of your ideal clients and teaching them something each and every week, and they're coming back to hear about it every time again. Now, you don't sit on your podcast for 30 minutes and sell the whole time. You're teaching them and serving them and demonstrating your authority and demonstrating your expertise in the industry and answering the questions that they have. And then when it's time where they need help, you've built that top of mind awareness that we all spend so much money in advertising trying to create. Here's an opportunity for you to create it every single week. And they're subscribing to come back and hear you talk about your favorite subject every week.
Yeah, absolutely. Now we need to take a quick break, but on the other side of the break, I want to talk to you a little bit about the format of a podcast show, and whether it should be an interview type situation like what we're doing here, if it should basically just be you as the podcaster up there pontificating about whatever it is you're an expert at, if you should go on for 5 minutes, for an hour. Let's talk about some of those things on the other side of the break. Hi, I'm Greg Jameson, the host of the 20 Minutes of Influence podcast. Every week, I not only have the opportunity, but the real privilege of interviewing experts in their field, true thought leaders, and I get to share this information with you. The purpose of this is really to help you sell more of your products and services online, which is the core premise of my primary business, Web Stores Limited. At Web Stores, we go out and we create e-commerce websites for small businesses. Plus, we do internet marketing and digital advertising for those businesses to really help them sell more online. We have a whole number of resources and tools designed to help make this process easier for businesses, probably much like yours. I've been the author of several #1 best-selling books, including Amazon's Dirty Little Secrets and The Influencer Effect, plus a whole series of online courses if you want to learn how to do this stuff yourself. The best way to remain in contact with me, besides subscribing to this podcast, of course, is to simply go to gregjameson.com/free gift, where I have a special offer for you simply because you are a valued listener to this podcast. Thanks again, and now let's get back to today's episode. Welcome back to the 20 Minutes of Influence podcast. My guest today is Erik Johnson, and right before the break, Erik and I were talking about the structure of a podcast program and whether or not you should be doing interviews like we're doing here today, whether or not you should be just up there talking for yourself for an hour, for 20 minutes, whatever it is. What are your thoughts on that, Erik?
The best part about podcasting is it's your show and you can do whatever you want. If you want to do an interview show, fantastic. If you want to do a solo show, that's great as well. On my show, on Podcast Talent Coach, it's usually just me. I get on there for about 20 to 30 minutes, and I teach one particular subject for that particular episode. So it might be storytelling, or it might be interviewing skills, or it might be how to save time in your production, or it might be how to get more listeners. But I'm teaching one thing over the course of the episode. Occasionally I'll have an interview on there, but that's pretty rare. Usually I'm trying to help a podcaster use their podcast to attract their ideal clients, and let's figure out how to structure your content to do so. Other people prefer to do interviews because standing in a room talking to an audience you can't see or hear and hoping you're entertaining is a challenge. Doing it by yourself is rough. The benefit of doing an interview is you have somebody to interact with. You don't have to do a lot of show prep. You just have to have some great questions and be really curious and a great listener, and pulling some great stories out of your guests. So an interview style makes it a little easier. More difficult to demonstrate your expertise in your industry. If you're doing an interview style show, you really have to craft that interview skill in order to tuck a little bit of your expertise into it. So solo or co-host or interview style, it's really just a matter of preference, and you can mix them both up. You could do whatever you'd like, because again, it's your show. The other thing that a lot of people ask me is, how long should it be? Like, how long's the ideal length of a podcast? There's no such thing as too long. There's only such thing as too boring. As long as you're entertaining and you're engaging, you can make it as long as you want. You can be a 5-minute podcast. You can be a 5-hour podcast. There's a gentleman that does a podcast called Hardcore History, and he only releases an episode every couple months because he's hardcore. I mean, he does in-depth research of a particular thing in history, and then he releases an episode on it, but the episode's like 3 hours long. But he's one of the most downloaded podcasts ever because people who listen to it are hardcore history fanatics. So there's really no right answer of what it should look like or how long it should be. It's all just a matter of personal preference.
Yeah, and I think what it is that makes you comfortable too. You know, some people are maybe comfortable talking for 3 hours. Other people, they might not be comfortable talking that long at all. The other thing that it seems like in this show, I've done both, where I just talk, other shows where I have guests on like you. And I think one of the things that's an advantage for people, kind of regardless of what industry you're in, if you have a guest on, at least occasionally, is that guest can help you promote your show and expand you into a bigger audience. So
That
might
is
be
one
something to
big
consider.
benefit of doing interviews is the partnership that it creates, because they can tell their audience, hey, I had the opportunity to be on 20 Minutes to Influence, go check it out, and it can help you grow your audience that way.
And the other thing that happens is that it's an incredible way to network. I've had people on the show that without having a podcast show, they probably wouldn't have given me the time of day. And it's like, you've got a podcast show, I'm coming on. And I've gotten to meet some great people that way.
I have one client that I work with. She isn't concerned about her downloads for her podcast at all. She only uses her podcast to attract and interview the people that she wants to work with. So she'll go out and find these CEOs and these prospective clients that she wants to land as a client, and she'll invite them on the podcast to talk about their expertise and their subject matter. And it opens the door for the conversation because it's not a big sales pitch. It's simply, come on the show and let's talk about your business and what you do. They strike up a relationship. They keep in contact over the next few weeks when the podcast is being released and being marketed and whatnot. And sometimes that leads into the business relationship she hopes to create. So it's all about lead generation and the
Yeah,
guests that she brings on.
yeah, absolutely. I think that's a great thing for anyone that's listening to the show today to consider as a way of really being able to grow your business and monetize your podcast simply by doing that. Are there other ways that you suggest to people that they might monetize their podcast, or should they monetize it?
Well, a lot of people want to get into podcasting and then sell a bunch of advertising or get some sponsors for their show. People are coming to podcasting from radio because they're trying to get away from all of those ads. And so I recommend to podcasters quite often to stay away from cluttering your show up with a bunch of sponsors. One or two might be decent, but you're not going to get rich off a bunch of sponsors. What you need to do is use your podcast as a marketing tool for your business. You need to have an underlying business that the podcast supports, whether that's coaching or consulting or speaking or a brick and mortar business like a plumber. Your podcast should promote that business. If I'm doing my plumbing show and I say, hey, if your kitchen sink drips, and no, doesn't matter how tight you turn off the spigots, it's because you need a new ball and socket in the handle. And it's a real easy fix. If you head over to myplumbingwebsite.com/faucet, you'll see the instructions right there on how to go buy it at Lowe's and how to install it. And you can be done in 25 minutes. And it's over at my website. And so now you're driving traffic to your website and it's showing all of the plumbing stuff that you sell and it's all of the services that you handle and things. I mean, it's great. And plumbing is so localized, but if you're if you can ship nationally, if you sell an actual physical product and you can ship it all over the world, driving people to your website to see what it is you create and offer is an amazing way to market your business. So when it comes to making money from your podcast, what I recommend is don't make money from your podcast, make money with your podcast. Use that podcast to market what you do in your underlying business.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think that it is, as we've discussed here today, it's such a powerful way of doing that compared to almost anything else you can do. The fact is that you can be putting out social media posts. You can even write a book. I've written several books, and that helps you create some level of authority. But it seems like having a podcast, because it is a regular weekly thing, and I'm assuming you think that a weekly podcast as opposed to a daily or monthly is kind of the...
Yeah. Well, daily is way too much work. I mean, you don't have time to do a daily podcast because you have a business to run. And a monthly podcast doesn't create the habit within your listener. Like the great thing about a podcast is that I can listen to it any day of the week. It doesn't matter what day you release your podcast, Greg. I can listen to it every Saturday because Saturday's my day I listen to podcasts, or I can listen to it every Tuesday. It's not like you're watching a network show and I have to be there Saturday night at 7:00, or I need to remember to DVR it. All I got to do is hit play whenever I'm ready to hear it. So it's consumable anytime you want. And a lot of people say, well, Erik, I don't have a business behind it. What do I need? What do I do? There's a lot of ways to be a business. You can be an affiliate marketer where if you love golf, for instance, you could find affiliate programs out there that teach golf or sell golf items, and you can promote those people and make a commission off of everything they sell because you're promoting it on your show. You could do Fulfilled by Amazon or something like that, where you're promoting somebody else's product or service or course and you're making money, but you're still talking about what it is that you love to talk about.
Yeah, I agree. Now, one of the things that you were talking about there with selling things, it seems like it might be easier with certain things, and maybe even with a plumber, to do a video type of podcast as opposed to an audio type of podcast. What are your thoughts on that?
You can definitely repurpose the content. Another great thing about podcasting, let's say you shoot a video. You shoot a quick video. It's a 15-minute how to change the faucet video, and you talk through it. If you shoot that video in a way where you're explaining everything you do while you're showing it on video, now if you take the faucet and you grab it just below the ring, and you're explaining it so people can see it in the theater of the mind, but you're also shooting that video, you can then use that video on YouTube. You can use that video on social media. Then you can take the audio from that video and use that as an audio podcast. So you can repurpose it. You can even have it transcribed and use it as a blog, so it's written out on your website. So you're only doing the work one time, but you're using it in 4 different places so people can consume it in the way they like to consume it. Some people like to surf around YouTube and watch videos. Some people like to listen to a podcast while they're riding their bike. Some people like to read a blog while they're on the train commuting to work every day. So deliver it in a way that they like to consume it. If you can do the work once and repurpose it over multiple channels, you're taking your content and multiplying it times 4. That's a fantastic way to increase your audience and attract your ideal clients.
I absolutely agree. That's absolutely huge. And in fact, you were saying how you could transcribe it and put it on your blog. You could transcribe it. There are tools out there like otter.ai that will transcribe things for you. You know, you don't even have to pay anybody to do it. And you can turn it into a book at the end of a year. And now you've got something else. So,
well, Seth Godin writes a great blog, and that's really all he does is after he's written enough blog posts on a particular topic, he takes all of them and aggregates them into a book, and he sells the book. And people say, well, nobody's going to buy that book because you can get it for free online. Well, yeah, but you have to go find all 75 blog posts and read them, or you can just spend the $20 and buy the book. And he sells an awful lot of books.
And
with all of this, you can hire out as much as you want. I mean, if you actually have a physical business and you're selling goods and you're shipping them around the world and you want to create a podcast to promote that, you can create the content and then hire out the production and the editing and all of that stuff for, a handful of dollars a month. I mean, you could get a good audio producer to produce your show and post it for you for $100 a month or something. I mean, it's not that difficult to find those people out there on Fiverr or all sorts of websites around that have audio producers for you.
And all these things that we talked about there are an incredible way to establish somebody as the authority to go to. And like you said, as a result of that, build your business that you are monetizing because of the fact that you did a blog or did a podcast in the first place.
There's a big saying that people do business with those that they know, like, and trust. Word of mouth is so powerful. And when we're in business, we try and create that. We try and get people to, if we're a plumber, to get our clients to refer us to their friends, because we know that referral goes so far, and it's such a powerful tool, a marketing tool, that word of mouth. And it's because of that trust factor. And there's no better way for your ideal clients to get to know you and like you and trust you than spending 30 or 60 minutes with you every week, you teaching them how to do something. It builds that trust factor. It builds your brand. It builds your authority in the space. It's such a powerful marketing tool. I can't praise it enough.
Well, fantastic information here today, Erik. Really appreciate you sharing all that with my audience. Is there any kind of final thoughts that you want to leave us with today?
It's easier than you think. I would look into it. If you own a business and you really want a powerful marketing tool, look into podcasting. If you head over to my web, I'll show you exactly how easy it can be. If you go to Podcast Talent Coach Launch, right there, you can get a 21-point checklist, which will show you the 21 steps it takes to actually launch a podcast. And after that's up, you only have to do 9 of those every week to actually keep it up. So it can't be easier. And on that same page, you'll find a video that will walk you through those 21 points and show you exactly how easy it is to get up and running with a podcast. So you can find that over at podcasttalentcoach.com/launch and see exactly how easy this is. It's such a powerful marketing tool for your business, and something I would highly recommend. You at least go kick the tires on. I mean, you don't have anything to lose, and you have so much to gain. Your business, especially in today's environment, can benefit from it in greater ways than you will ever imagine.
Great. Really appreciate it. I will make sure that those links get put in the show notes as well. And just want to thank you, Erik, for being on the show today.
Greg, thanks for having me. It was a pleasure to talk to you. Let me know if I can ever do anything for you.
You bet.
Thanks for listening to today's episode of 20 Minutes of Influence. If you enjoyed today's podcast, please leave a review on iTunes or wherever you listen to your podcasts. And if you are interested in booking myself as a speaker at one of your events or are interested in any of my coaching programs, please visit gregjameson.com.